saw the video today that Tim edited. This long video, hour-long video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what's going on over here?
That's funny.
All right, so in relation to this comment here, Chrome tab. Here we go. You see this one up here at AN Anoop HT or whatever? You guys see that?
Okay.
So he goes on about how seems
Zoom
like
in on that though. Zoom in on that. Let's see. All right.
There we go. Yeah.
Seems like a deliberate attempt to prove oral layout is something better by making a point that doesn't exist. Okay. And then he goes on to about, what I was saying about height speakers and the other things. Okay. So there's that. Now here. Hang on, I gotta
hold
change.
on, he's getting positioned. Hold on a second.
I gotta change HDMI cables. Hold on.
There it goes. Look it. He says Channa Rant incoming. At least I hope so. He's got to change out his battery for this one. You better turn down your mic for this one.
Let's see.
Right.
There we go.
There it goes. All right. So
all right. Boom.
There we go.
So is my mouse I'm using this through my other computer. It's very
Yeah, we can sit.
All right.
Cool. Let's see if I can maybe get it a little bit bigger here. That's what she said. Oh.
That's sad that she had to say it though.
I know. Well, you know how it goes. Bigger, small. Oh, here, let's try this.
Okay. I don't know how it goes, Channa.
Got no signal, bro.
Yeah, no, it's probably doing something.
Okay.
There we go.
Gotcha.
There we go.
All right.
And big shout out to Joe because I got 2 keyboards and 2 mics or 2 mice right here, so I can try to get this going. Win, Alt, Control. Okay. Oh, get out of here. Hold on. There we go. All right, so here we are. Dolby Atmos renderer, right? You guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Now, It's a silly mouse. Here we go. All right, so we got this sound right here, right? This sound. Now, if you think about this room or this little box that we're looking at, what do you guys think this box is? Is this our room dimensions or our speaker dimensions? Or our speaker layout?
I would imagine it would be your speakers.
Right.
I'm guessing.
Right. No, that's exactly it. Because, our this is our speaker boundary, right? Mm-hmm. Not our
where the physical speakers are.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So let me take this other window here and wait, first let's do this. Let's go up, right? Let's take the sound and let's move it up. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now here's this. And if you have a height channel, it's probably imaging. If you have height channels over, in the corners here above your mains, you're probably going to be okay for that to image properly. But here's what happens. Bloop. Like when you got in-ceiling speakers that are about 2/3 of the way in, where's that sound? Where's that sound going to come from? Because now you're effectively changing the here, let's go like this. Yeah, this is so hard. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now, boom, like that, right? And then boom, like that. Now your height layer is going to be...
So what are these boxes that you're putting here?
That's just to block out the... So imagine if your in-ceiling speaker's here and your other one's here, you're blocking out all that extra space that should be there. And so if I'm putting a sound up here, but your in-ceiling speaker is here, so this is why I'm putting this window in front of it, how are you hearing this sound? And how is Atmos going to display this sound properly when it's clearly behind the physical placement of your speaker? This is what I was trying to talk about last week. And I don't know. And so I've been thinking about how to show this to you guys because you're effectively moving the physical boundaries of where your speakers and what the software are telling you, or the software is where you make all the stuff. I don't have your boundary here. right? All I have is the room boundary and not your specific boundary. And when we're, cutting it off in that kind of a way, all these sounds that are supposed to be up to the front here or up to the back here are going to be matrixed or displayed somewhere like over here, a lot closer to you than it was supposed to be, like intended wise.
Where's your thing?
It's probably scroll down. Yeah.
There we go.
So does that make sense? This is what I was trying to talk about last week. If the sound is supposed to be up here, top front height, and your in-ceiling speakers start here, where are you hearing this sound? You're going to be hearing the sound somewhere back here, right?
Yeah. Can you just move that? Yeah, that's where you'd hear the sound instead of
up front, right? Because boom, this is here. So if your in-ceiling speakers are where that second window is, you're going to hear this sound here instead of where it's supposed to be, which was like right up here in the corner. So this is why I was saying that in-ceiling speakers are going to give you an inaccurate representation of what's happening on screen, because physically, like this, like if you look at this now, like you're moving the physical, boundary of the speakers. So like your ear level speakers are down here, right? And so now you're kind of cutting the room in this weird.
But all right, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
All right.
Every speaker has a dispersion pattern.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's not like this thing is a laser beam coming straight down and you don't have any sound, coming from the other side. It's actually dispersing sound. And the higher like my ceilings are 10 foot. So the higher your ceilings are, the more dispersed that sound is going to be. Then on top of that, you've got tweeters that can be angled. So you've got some sound that is actually coming kind of more direct than like your mid-range and the bass frequencies. Those would be kind of more, I guess, dispersed. But I guess even at 10 feet, a tweeter is going to have a pretty decent sized dispersion.
Somewhat of a dispersion pattern, yeah.
Yeah. So, and honestly, I mean, looking at your example, it's hard to imagine that because we don't have any room dimensions. Like what distance are you even talking about there? Because when you put your quote boxes to the front and back of the head, it almost looks like that speaker's almost straight above you. And that'd be like 20 degrees. So
okay. If it's like right there.
Yeah.
And so what are we looking at here, Channa? Are we using the corner of that box, or like what part of that box are you using? That window?
Like I'm just trying to show like wherever this intersects, this box with the roof is where your in ceiling is, right?
Okay. So you're using that.
Yeah, and so like this would be where your rear ones are, but usually in any kind of like whatever Atmos something or other,
it'd be more helpful to use those corners. Can you use the corners to say where the speaker would be? Because it's a little confusing. You know what I mean? Like use that corner of the box, right?
Okay, like there.
So we're using that bottom right corner of that as saying where the speaker is.
Right.
And the other one would be the bottom. The bottom left corner would be where that other speaker is. Right. So here's what I think is happening, right?
Let me move
I think that Atmos is they should have made it more of a dome shape. Right? This image should be more of a dome shape. Like a half sphere. And so when it's up closer to you, right, that's where it would be if you were to make a half sphere. Does that make sense?
Oh.
So it's kind of tricky because I don't know if they can make up their mind whether this is a system that's based on the square layout like they're showing here, or is it a sphere, a spherical layout?
In all of the Dolby Atmos renderers for creation, it's always this rectangle.
Okay, so that's tricky, right?
Yeah.
That's tricky because, I guess it depends on your layout.
Right. And I know somebody else, who is it? Jeremy sent me this video, this one guy, and they're like, we're going to check out some panning options in the Dolby Atmos renderer. And he said, if I have, like what you guys see on screen here, the ball is top front. He said, if you have a high channel, you'll hear this where it's supposed to be. But if you have in-ceiling speakers, you're going to hear it somewhere around here instead of, you're going to hear it in a different place. And like that right there, if somebody else is saying it, not just me, that right there just shows you that like there needs to be a better standardization of Atmos specifications for your home. Because to me, it seems like if I put a sound up here, and this is why I want to make a video and have all the people with height channels or with in ceilings tell me where are they hearing this sound? Are they hearing it here? Are they hearing it above them? Or if I put a sound above me directly or above you directly, are you hearing it above you directly? Or is it behind you?
Okay, I got you.
You get what I'm saying? Like that's what I want to know.
And that's going to be different based on their layout too, because people with 2 speakers.
It's only going to be. It would only apply to people with 4 height channels.
Okay, I got you.
Right, because that's the only way
that was going to be weird.
Okay. Well, if you look at the layout, right? I think the layout for Atmos though. It looks like the 4 height channels are in closer to you than the ear level speakers. So let's just say, for example,
here. Let me put this guy around. All right. So look, if we go to here, let me move these things, and you guys will see they're in the here. Let's go to the angle. Where's the angle? No. Here, this one. All right. So look. Let's play this sound. Okay, this is your height left, right? This is your rear height. They're in the corners. If you only want that one speaker playing, then you got to put it in the corner. Here, when we go to mid, this is your.
It'll blend the front and the back, right?
Yeah, unless you have a third set of height channels.
Sure.
Right. Yep. If you go here halfway in between and go down. Middle. This is your front wide, and this is your front right. Right, and then here's your front wide, and then here's your side surround.
Yep.
And then your surround back is back here, right? So like that's why they have this grid here on the left, which is what I'm moving. So I made a 9.1.6 call out, and even though I don't have front wide and left front wide, according to Shane, they came through on his front wide. So I had him test that out,
right?
So this box here on the screen are the speaker boundaries, right? These are the speaker boundaries, not the room boundaries, but these are the speaker boundaries.
Sure.
So to me, if I'm putting a sound up here top front, because really what's happening is I'm messing around with the song, and I'm having the sound go from here to here to here. And then back down to ear level. So it's just going to use the front left, go up to front height right, over to right height right, and then down to front height right. I don't even know if I'm saying this right.
Yeah.
But
left, up, right, down.
Yeah. So it's making a square. It's kind of like a wall of sound, right? It's going to go bleep, 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 and move around. But what would that sound like on a system that had in ceilings, where the in ceilings are, here?
Can I share this part?
Yeah,
I don't know if this will help make it clearer for others.
Yeah, because I'm confused.
I've seen like layouts like this. Now I don't know if this is the correct one. They have so many diagrams out there. Yeah. And from what I hear, the Dolby one that they, if you do a quick Google search, the first one that comes up, a lot of people say, no, that's not the right way. That's overly simplified. But I've seen stuff like this where it's like based on a circle, right? I think this is the ITU standard for 5.1 has always been, right? So 5.1, or this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? 7, yeah. 7.1 is kind of the circular arrangement, right? So based on this, like if this is based on that, and then you have your height channels here, to me, what I would imagine is if I looked at this from the side view, is that what this is here?
That looks like from the back.
Yeah.
Like from the back of the room forward. Like if you're standing there.
So the whole idea of these being closer to you than the other speakers tells me
looking from the side, I think, because on the left you got the center.
Oh, you're right, Mike. You're right. Yeah.
And then the left and right on the left.
So somebody correct me if I'm wrong when it comes to this, but based on this layout that I'm looking at here, it looks like it's trying to make a dome shape. Right. Like imagine this, if there was such thing as a voice of God, this would make that half sphere. And that's why these are closer than these other speakers. Right?
Well, think about this though, the dome part. I mean, technically, you could take, let's just say for instance, the rear left, bottom left, and the rear right. You could back those up to where they were in line with the surround left and surround right. So just be
okay. So over here,
extend the line. It's still going to be the same thing. Doesn't matter where that speaker is because that sound is going to reach you. Your AVR is going to level match that to where those are going to reach your,
But I think where if we have to be specific, you're saying align it with this left surround
I'm just
and
saying,
left, right? But
yeah,
this would have
nobody
to
has
keep
a
the same
round room.
angle though, right? So
yeah, correct.
that would have to go straight back this way, boom, right there, right?
Yep.
So that would they'd turn it up a little bit louder because it's further from you, right? Change the delay a little bit. But I think what some people will do is they'll take this and then they'll move it that way, right here, and that might not be so great.
So
the angle is less here, right? If you put it here,
ideally it's Dolby Atmos, and I imagine Auro 3D is very similar. The whole goal is to put your speakers at a certain angle so that there's no gap, like holes in that field, that surround immersive environment. And if you get them too close together, that's not cohesive because now you're separating. So in your example, the back left surround, if you push that over closer to the left surround, now that means the back left surround have a greater angle than the back right surround. Does that make sense? So you're doing like this, so it's too wide of an angle possibly. So
yeah, I mean, to me, it's pretty simple, right? To me, the way I would put it is more like, imagine if you had this half dome, right? And then let's say you had magnets that represented each speaker, and all of the magnets wanted to get away from each other, right? So every time you put one near another one, it's going to move this way to try to get away from it. But then it might get closer to another one, so it's going to be right in the middle. So if you had a speaker for every one of those magnets, where would they naturally fall? Kind of like as far away from the others as possible.
As needed.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying though, right? So they'd naturally start be spaced apart, right? Equally. And I think that's what people are basically saying is like you want the most possible coverage given the speakers that you have, right? So the more speakers you have, then the angles can get closer together because you have more coverage. So anyway, I think what I'm saying is that it gets confusing when they're showing these circle-based surround systems, but your Atmos, renderer there is showing a square, right?
And it's not just mine; it's all of them.
Yeah.
All of the Atmos renderers are square or rectangular.
But I guess that's my point. Even if you change that to a round boundary, is what we're calling it.
Okay.
It still doesn't change anything because they're straight lines. The angle stays the same. The distance is the only thing that's changing. So I don't think it really matters.
It would though. Let's say if Channa said, "I want to make the sound go from the bottom and straight up. I don't want it to go towards you at all. I want it to just sound like it's going straight up, right?" Yeah. And I think that what he's saying is, if your height speaker is closer to you, then it's not going to go straight up. It's going to go up and towards you.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Because
in my room, my front speakers are forward from my Atmos speakers. So so he's saying your angle is going to come up like this.
Yeah, right? Like he doesn't want it to go that way. If he did, he would have put it there, right?
It's going to come up like that.
I guess in theory, like when you're thinking, if you're drawing lines, absolutely, I 100% what you get. But my logic and just literally experiencing this in my own home theater, I've never once had a sound go from my front left up to my height speaker, and I went, man, that thing got closer. That's all I'm saying.
But see, that's the thing is, anytime you watch a movie, everything happens so fast that we won't notice what's wrong with it. And I think one of the things is understanding
in your call-outs, though.
What's that?
Like I downloaded your call-outs.
Yeah.
I didn't once go, oh man, that's kind of weird. It's actually closer. My brain doesn't know that it's 2 foot closer. I mean, if you got a 30-foot room and you move it 8 feet closer, okay, maybe I can see that. Maybe, So I don't know. I guess I don't see the argument, to be honest with you.
Well, so here's the thing when he was mentioning Auro, right? With Auro, the whole thing, their specific thing is don't ever let the height speaker be closer to you than the corresponding ear level speaker. right? Which makes sense because if you're making a cube, right, some type of shape like that, basically you can't have the corresponding height speaker be closer to you than the other ones, which is kind of what Atmos is calling for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
again,
it's like
a different philosophy. That's their logic of what they feel is, the best option.
Well, let's look at
TSX saying this.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
it's their philosophy.
Yeah, each one of them have a different philosophy of what they think, is the best layout.
Well, so I guess what I'm saying here though is looking at Dolby's renderer, right? Looking at their layout.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna run something up along the side of the wall, right, like Channa's doing, so from ear level straight up to the left, the best way to do that is to have a speaker on the upper left.
Mm-hmm.
That would give you the most accurate representation of where that sound is, right? Based on this render, right? If they made this render a half sphere, then it would make more sense. Yeah. It's all I'm saying.
And again, I'm just looking at it. Yeah, it makes sense on paper. It makes sense when you're looking at a little box and going, okay, it should come from up here. This will be the most accurate representation.
Yeah.
I've always been one of those guys. My biggest concern is real world experience. What does my brain hear? And so if my brain doesn't know there's a difference between if it was moved a foot further closer to the front speakers, I think it's just moot. So, yeah, but that's just my opinion.
I think from my testing, right? Because I've had it set up both ways. I'm always kind of just messing around to see what difference I notice specifically, right? And what I found is it's always the most accurate if the sound is coming from a place where you actually have a speaker. I mean, that's kind of common sense, right? You can do a phantom center, or you can actually have a center channel. The center channel is going to sound more realistic, right? So you can phantom it and make it sound like it's far away, even though the speaker is close to you. But it would be optimal if the speaker was actually in the place where he placed it. And
I just don't know if your brain can, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like,
you can't tell.
Yeah,
you can't tell.
That's the thing.
Like, you can't tell.
Yeah. I guess that's my logic. It's like, okay, yes, would that be more accurate? Maybe so. But I just don't know that your brain cares. And your brain could literally, I'd be interested. So definitely, Channa, when you do that, I'd be glad to partake in that and kind of share my experience of where am I hearing it from? So
I love it. It's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, this whole conversation is interesting. I mean,
and where nobody's having it because nobody else is really making the stuff.
Yeah.
At least that you guys have access to. I mean, I see the big, I just saw on sweetwater.com or whatever, CLA, Chris Lord Algae, the guy's like one of the biggest mixing engineers. You should see his Atmos studio. It's ridiculously expensive. And that's cool and that's fine. But I mean, for the most part, having these conversations and, and actually knowing what's happening will just make it better in the future for everybody involved, the people making it and the people creating it and the people consuming it. And I think that's, one of the things we need to understand. And of course, people are probably going to be pissed off at what I'm saying because they've, if they're a home theater designer, if they sell home theater installs and installed a whole bunch and said, oh yeah, this is the best way to go. And if I come out here and say, actually, I would never do this because you're not going to be hearing things incorrectly, they're going to be pissed at me because now they're going to probably have some customers that are going to be like, hey, well, there's a techno dad guy saying like, I should actually do this instead of this. And I can't try. I'm not going to rip up the ceiling here to install in ceilings to try it. But yeah, I think, we definitely need somebody. That's what somebody needs, a fucking Cedia. These fucking assholes trying to sell shit all the time. Have a room where there's 4 height channels in the corners and then 2 sets of in ceilings and run demos and just have a switch, switch, like a quick switch. I don't know how, but that's what needs to be done at fucking Cedia. Not just, oh, we got this new thing. Oh, let's see how we can make our customers' Dolby Atmos home theater the best it can fucking be. That's what needs to happen at Cedia. But that they're not going to do that because all they want is cash, right? At least that's what I think after being there a few times. Bottom line is, yes, what I'm going to say is going to piss off people because they've taken money from a bunch of people already and been like, this is the best Atmos, the best configuration for Atmos for your room. But then if I come out and say it's actually not, then people are going to be like, oh, well, this guy sold me on this because they just didn't know, or they were just following Atmos spec, or whatever the excuse is. This is what I'm saying. If people are plunking down $10,000, $20,000, $200,000 on a theater, it should be fucking right. And if it's not right, I would be pissed. And like, dude, like my wife is pissed when the sandwich at Subway is not made correctly, and that's like $5, $6, right? Imagine if you were actually spending a ton of money that you've saved up and sacrificed, and now here we go. We thought this was the right way to do it back when you got your theater, but now, a few years later, we find out that it's not. So what do you do with that? You know, I don't know. This is what keeps me up at night, Mike. We were talking about I can't get any sleep.
Oh, whatever, dude. I just go in my theater room and smile, man. I just play something and just enjoy it. So, and I think that's, like I said, to me,
but see, it just goes down. And that's cool. But like me, I spent like an hour doing one effect on that song, and I know it's going to sound different everywhere. And I don't think that people understand that. Like even my little thing, the little Technodad logo thing. Oh, I switched it to 512 in here, and it sounds so weird. It's like, okay, the thing is circling around, and then it jumps to a different speaker, then it jumps to a different speaker, jumps to a different speaker because those speakers aren't there. And so like I'm like, oh, it sounds like doo-doo. So I don't know. So, from my standpoint, creating it, and then
wouldn't that same thing happen with DTSX with Oro 3D? If you don't, if they're mixing in, let's say, I don't know, 9 speakers, but you only have 5, you can't physically, you don't have a speaker represented for those locations. So like Joe said, they're going to have to do a phantom sound in between speakers. So it's not going to be ideal. I don't think anybody, because there is no standard. There's no, like, everybody should have a 7 point blank point blank or a 9 point blank point blank in any format. They're saying, okay, you can have as minimum of 5.1.2. You can go all the way up to whatever, 16.5, 6.30. I don't know, So I don't know.
Yeah.
So what is somebody said you should be using the studio setup, right? The Atmos studio setup. I'm trying to find where that is exactly. I know that there's a PDF out there somewhere. That's the
problem, Tyler. All the studios, they all say that you have to have an elevated rear soundstage for the Atmos studio configuration. But all the studios I've seen have the surround soundstage at ear level. So if the mixing engineers aren't following that, then what? Then it's just like I said last week. Just put a speaker wherever you want. Put a speaker on your forehead, and you'll be fine. And Boy Genius also brings up another interesting point, is that the Avr algorithm has to play a part in it too. So how good is the decoding of Atmos in a $600 receiver as opposed to a $3,000 receiver pre-pro? Are there different levels of that as well? So that will definitely play a part into it. At what degree, that's something we just don't know.
Yes, it's interesting. I'm looking at various Dolby studios, and some of them have height speakers that are above the main channels, kind of like an Oro layout, and some of them have them closer in. So they're all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Even these studios that I'm looking at here, right? Legitimate studios. They're all set up a little bit different.
Do they fall within their recommended angles? I mean, that's really all that matters.
Maybe, yeah.
But
maybe there's a range, like you're saying, right? Like
when you got 30 to 45 degrees, which is typically a lot of those, like that chart that you showed even earlier had 30 to 45 degrees where those front Atmos speakers should be. So anywhere in that range is fine, because they know that, all right, in my room, I have, when I'm trying to figure out where am I going to mount these in-ceiling speakers, I've got studs or whatever you call them, rafters or whatever. You've got a piece of wood that's in the way. So I physically have to go in between. So you have to either go further out or further in. Okay. So that's still within that range that that angle.
Yeah.
So my thought was, if they're still within that acceptable range, and there is going to be some differences, because they're not saying you need to put your front height speakers or your Atmos speakers, this distance or this height, because you got different ceiling heights. And that's the other thing. If you got an 8-foot ceiling, you got a 10-foot ceiling, there's a big difference in where that speaker's physically going to be in the room, placed based on angle.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of different things, I think. So
Yeah.
I hear you. You can't control how somebody else is going to set up their speakers.
Sure.
They might have their own limitations. And what Channa, I think, is hoping for is that you'll get a good translation,
Right.
for the most part, from
And
what he's hearing and creating to what you're getting.
You're hearing at the end. So I put out, I sent out to anybody who was a subscriber on the newsletter a new version of that Panic Room remix with like a longer intro, to where there's only 2 elements and you can distinctly hear them like moving around the room. Even Jeremy sent me an email. He said it was awesome. So if he likes it, definitely good. However, somebody with the 512 with front heights and side surrounds said, okay, this is what I heard, and these are the weird things that are happening. So, and since I made a big stink about it in my other video, it just means I'm going to have to make a separate mix just for a 512 on a 512 monitoring system in here, so that I know what it's going to sound like and I can optimize the sound for someone's configuration and see what people think. Because, I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like some of these studios are huge. Like we talk about 916, dude, they got 11, 1, 14, right? They got huge systems. And to matrix it to 512, like that's something just like that, Suntory whiskey time, shit gets lost in translation, so yeah.
I think we're all just trying to figure this out. I don't know that everybody has all the answers. We're comparing notes, right? So I think that's how I'd like people to see it. Like, we're just comparing notes. We're trying to figure out what's what, where are there issues, where are there, what's the best possible place to put the speakers. In my opinion, I like to put my speakers, my height speakers above the other ones, because like Michael was saying, it is within spec, right? According, it's allowed, right?
Right.
But it's also the optimal layout for Oro, and I like to be able to switch back and forth. But if I set up ceiling heights, Oro does not sound good. That's outside of their spec, because the height speakers are closer to you than the ear level speakers, and it just doesn't work. So I would prefer a layout that allows me to use all of them. After every Monday podcast, we have an after show. If you're interested in joining us, go to patreon.com/Daily HiFi.